Tips of the Scale, episode 22.
Welcome to tipsofthescale.com, your home for weight loss motivation. Tune in every week for weight loss success stories from around the world and for expert tips on diet and exercise. And now, your host, Sam Lamelli.
Hey there, Scale Warriors, and thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of Tips of the Scale, your home for weight loss motivation. Are you on our email list? If not, you're missing out on your chance to be entered in some fun contests that are coming your way. Do you want to miss out? I didn't think so. Go to tipsofthescale.com/subscribe to sign up now. And if you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support by going to tipsofthescale.com and clicking on the subscribe in iTunes button at the top of our page. This will send you over to iTunes where you can leave a, hopefully, 5-star rating and review. To show my appreciation for your, hopefully, 5-star rating, I'll give you a shout out at the top of an upcoming show telling the world just how cool you are. All right, Scale Warriors, let's get started. I am thrilled to introduce my guest today, Mrs. Maggie Jasmine from Boston, Massachusetts. Now, in a Tips of the Scale first, Maggie is actually the spouse of a former guest, Mr. David Jasmine, who you might remember from a couple of weeks ago. So I am really excited to have Maggie on the show today to tell her story of weight loss and the journey that got her to where she is today. Now, I won't spoil the surprise about how much she's lost, so I'll let her share that. Maggie, how are you today?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. Now, I've given our listeners just a little brief overview about you, but go ahead and take a minute and tell us a little more about you so we can get to know you.
Okay. Well, I am 28 years old. I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts. And like you mentioned, I'm David Jasmine's wife, who has been on earlier. And I really enjoy cooking, baking, all kinds of arts and crafts, stuff like that. Anything basically where I can be creative.
Right on. Well, I'm itching to jump into your story here, but as you know, we like to kick off Tips of the Scale with a motivational quote to get the inspirational ball rolling and get everybody ready for your story. So, Maggie, what do you have for us today?
Well, my favorite inspirational quote that I have heard in the past probably 6 months has to be, "You have as many hours in the day as Beyonce does." Mm-hmm. And, you know, it seems a little silly, and it is, but it's true, because everybody can achieve their goals. You just have to be willing to put in the work and the time and the effort. So if Beyonce can do it, so can you.
Absolutely. You reminded me of something a former guest said as well. And there's a lyrics to a Jay-Z song that talk about how hard he's working and how successful he is and everything that he's accomplished in life, and that he's still working really hard. So it's like, if I'm still working hard, why aren't you? Like, we're the same kind of person.
Exactly. Yes.
I love it. That's a fantastic attitude and a fantastic way to go about things. Awesome. So with that, to get us started, let's dive back to the very beginning of your story, which is when the weight gain began. So for you, Maggie, when did the weight gain begin for you, and what do you think contributed to it?
Well, I was probably 8 or 9, and I had Lyme disease and mono back to back. And so I ended up losing quite a bit of weight. I was a very, very skinny child at that point. Once I had recovered, it took about 6 months for me to recover. And so my mom just started feeding me, you know, anything, something to get me to not be so skinny, get me back healthy. And also when I had mono and Lyme, I got used to little treats like popsicles and stuff like that, because sometimes that's all I could stomach. So once I got better, I just kind of continued to eat junk food, and Mom didn't really say anything because I had been sick for so long. She was just happy I was eating anything. Yeah. And so that probably continued for another about 3 years until I was 12. And by that point, I was a pretty overweight kid. And when I was about 13, I went on my first diet. So I was very young when I went on my first diet.
Do you recall what neighborhood of weight you were at in that time?
I don't even believe we owned a scale.
Okay.
I never weighed myself, but I do know at 13 I was a size 13.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So very young. And, just like you said, it was through no fault of your parents, right? Just trying to make sure that you were healthy.
Oh, yeah.
And given kind of the medical situation you'd been through, I can completely understand it as a parent. You want to make sure your kid is eating.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it makes total sense. Now, it's remarkable to hear that you tried your first diet at 13. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Now, before you became successful in your weight loss and before you found the thing that ultimately worked for you, what kinds of diets and programs and methods did you attempt that were not successful for you?
Well, I mostly did low carb. So I tried Atkins a couple of times, South Beach. There are many variations along that same theme, and they would work for a short amount of time. I would lose 30 or 40 pounds and then gain all of it back plus some.
Yeah.
And I never really incorporated exercise into my routine, so that didn't really help very much.
So thinking back to those struggles where you were trying these different things and nothing seemed to be helping for the long term, what were some of the emotional and physical difficulties that you experienced as a direct result of being overweight?
Well, I mean, in high school, middle school, high school, even into college, I had friends, and I had a pretty active social life, but I didn't date much. I was never really secure in myself, so I felt very self-conscious around other people who I might date, and I just never got asked out. So, that can be kind of a killer for a teenage girl.
Absolutely.
I mean, physically, it was hard for me to participate in gym class, dance class. I never really participated in any intramural sports. I stuck to art club, theater, things where I didn't really have to be active because I did feel self-conscious. I felt like I wasn't any good at it.
Yeah. And
so that in itself prevented me from maybe losing weight and getting more active at that point in my life.
Yeah, those are tough years to be dealing with those kinds of insecurities. And, it's already a time where people are really hypercritical of others and of themselves. And you add that element of, not being comfortable in your own body. And that's a tough time.
Right, exactly.
I can completely relate from the other side of the equation there. So ultimately, Maggie, you found a reason or a method that turned things around for you. Now, what was the moment for you? What was the spark or the event that made you finally decide to take action and start living healthier?
Well, I had my yearly physical in November of 2012, and I had gained 30 pounds in a year. It was happy married fat. It was I had gotten married. We were really comfortable. Nobody was really keeping us accountable for what we were eating except ourselves. And so I would bake a batch of cookies, maybe 12 cookies, and we would each eat half of that batch of cookies. And it became, obviously I gained 30 pounds in a year. It became very unhealthy. So I went to the doctor and we had a serious conversation, and, she presented me with options. And at first I was very resistant. I was very kind of angry at being put on the spot about my weight, because it was always something that I was just almost in denial about. I knew it, but I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to talk about it, especially with a health professional. So once I kind of talked it out with my mom after the doctor's appointment, and it took me about a week to realize, you know what? She's right. This is unhealthy. And my husband and I started looking into better options for food and eating healthier. And I'd actually been diagnosed with lupus.
Oh, wow.
And so I didn't really think that I could even exercise without having a spell, basically an episode where you just get severely exhausted.
Yeah.
And so it took a couple of months really to start the exercise portion, but we started eating healthy right around Christmas of 2012.
So we're at approximately 10 months from when this lifestyle change happened, and we haven't revealed at this point how much you've lost. So from the heaviest point to where you are today, how much have you lost now, Maggie?
Well, I started at 255 and now I am at 151. So I've lost 104 pounds.
Awesome. That is an amazing achievement. You should be really proud of that. I think a lot of people out there are really excited to hear that, because your story is something I think a lot of people can relate to. I mean, just hearing you say, yeah, it was the happy married fat and the happy married calories and pounds in that diet. I know a lot of people out there closed their eyes and nodded yes and were smiling at that. So this is something so many people can relate to. So to hear that you were able to drop over 100 pounds in the last 10 months is a complete testament to the fact that it's doable. And you've proven it, and I want to dive into some of the specifics of how you did. So take us back to the beginning and how you started this. So you had this conversation with your physician, and you went back to your husband, and you all were looking at the options and the changes you wanted to make. So you started this year. What were the first steps like for you? What did day one look like? What were the first things that you tried? And what kind of obstacles did you run into early on?
Well, day one was cutting out sugar, and not all sugar, but some sugar, and adding more vegetables, and just slowly making healthier choices like that. You know, it was slow at first, and I realized very quickly that portion control was my problem. It wasn't just the types of food that I was eating, because I was cooking very, healthy, nutritious food. I was just eating a lot of it, and I was using a lot of oil to cook it. So a couple of months after we started, we bought a food scale, a kitchen scale. Right. And that was the best thing that we could have done. And I started tracking my calories on this website, caloриecount.com. And it really opened my eyes to what I was eating and how much I was eating, which I think is really the key when it comes to controlling portions and getting in your nutrient and stuff like that.
Absolutely. How dramatic a difference was there between what you thought you were consuming and what you were actually consuming when you started weighing it?
Oh gosh. Before I started really watching what I was eating, I was probably eating as many as 4,000 calories a day. Yeah. Probably no less than 3,000 calories per day. And to see that, to recognize, oh my gosh, a chicken breast, no matter what they say, is not 4 ounces, it's more like 6 to 8 ounces, is revolutionary, because that's 200 calories right there, 4 ounce difference in a chicken breast. So you're eating really healthy food, but then you have to also consider portion size and your daily calorie amount as well. So
some really good advice in there, and getting a food scale. I know that since I got one for my own place here and use it daily, like it's been really interesting to see once you actually start seeing the numbers that you really are consuming. It's a big eye opener.
It is indeed. Yeah, definitely.
So when you were trying this out and you're starting to weigh your food and you're taking your first steps down this new path and this journey, did you tell anyone that you were trying to lose weight? Family, friends, people around you, and if so, what kind of reactions did you get?
I told only Dave at first, my husband. He was the only person that I discussed it with for probably 2 months. And I know that he discussed his own weight loss with his family and some friends, some close friends before that, but I just wasn't ready. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. I didn't know if I was going to have the willpower to stick with it. So I didn't really tell anybody. Yeah. But I ended up being very competitive with my husband regarding our fitness and weight loss. And so that helped me to kind of push it through. And in the first 2 months, I lost 20 pounds. And so I felt like after that, I was really able to open up to people and say, I'm on the journey to lose weight, to get healthy, and, just to be fit again.
Yeah, that is awesome to hear. And I think a lot of people can relate to exactly what you just said. There's a fear of failing right off the bat, and you're afraid of, and tell me if I'm off here, but I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of, you want to share with people and you want to ask them for their help, but you're afraid that you're going to be embarrassed or humiliated or ashamed if you don't succeed. So it's a tough place to be, to ask for that help or to tell anybody when you're not 100% confident in yourself yet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because you don't really know what you're capable of until you do it. So you don't feel confident enough to open up to people, even close family members, close friends, until you show yourself that you can.
That's a perfect segue into my next question, which is, when did you notice that you were first making progress, and how did that feel?
We started weighing ourselves pretty much right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And the first week and a half, I lost 5 pounds. Just cutting out crappy food and eating a little bit less of it. The weight dropped off immediately, that first 5 pounds. And it leveled off to an average about 10 pounds per month. And I decided I was actually going to bribe myself. So every time I lost 10 pounds, then I would be able to go out and get something little, like a nail polish that I wanted, or a new lipstick or something like that, something little. But, it was an incentive for me, and it was one of the things that helped me get going, was just to kind of bribe myself a little bit.
That's a really awesome way to reward yourself. And I like, and I'm going to point out that your reward to yourself was not food related. I hear sometimes if people try, okay, after my first 10 pounds, I'm going to reward myself with some cookies or a donut or that thing that they really, really hated to give up, when you're doing exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. Because if you associate that food with a reward, that's going to set you back a little bit from a, psychological standpoint. So I love that your gift to yourself and your reward to yourself for your discipline and that reaching that milestone was something not food related, and it was something that you could feel good about, right? It sounds like, they were, nail polish and kind of stuff that made you feel happier and made you feel probably more attractive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was just something to kind of help me along my journey. I've always loved clothes and nail polish and makeup and everything, and Dave will tell you. But, this way it was just a little treat. It was a special little treat that, like you said, it wasn't food. Because food is wonderful and it's nutritious and you need food to keep you going. But when you're trying to wean yourself off of bad habits, you shouldn't participate in those bad habits as a reward to yourself.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That is awesome. I'm so glad you shared that. So you're seeing results early on. You were feeling a lot more confident, feeling empowered. You were rewarding yourself. You were on a great path. Now, as you proceeded down this path and started down this journey, what were some things that you learned about diet and exercise that you didn't know when you first started?
Things I learned about diet and exercise. Well, for diet, definitely weighing food. It was shocking to see how much portion control will help. And it's shocking to see exactly what the healthy portion is compared to what I had been used to eating. And, there are other ways, if you don't have a kitchen scale, there are other ways to kind of measure that. Cup measurements, or, they say that 4 ounces of chicken is about the size of a deck of cards. So if you don't have access to a kitchen scale, there are other ways to kind of approximate portion sizes, which is pretty cool. And as for exercise, it was really hard to begin with. I started with Pilates, and then Dave started doing P90X, and I decided to do it with him. And P90X is a pretty much all-encompassing home workout program. It was very challenging. And the thing that I learned throughout doing that is that it gets easier. It starts off and it's really, really difficult. And as overweight as I was, I couldn't do a lot of the moves, even in yoga. I had a lot of trouble even doing downward facing dog, moves like that. Just because I was so heavy. But as you continue to exercise and as you continue to lose weight, it gets easier and you can do more. And as long as, even if you're just starting out, as long as you're putting in your 100%, as long as you are putting forth that effort, it is worth it and it is going to work.
That's awesome. Very inspiring words and some great advice there in terms of some programs to try. I'll make sure that I link up P90X and Calorie Count and with the show notes, so our listeners can go check them out for themselves.
Awesome.
Now, along with the things that you were learning about diet and exercise throughout this journey, what were some things that you were figuring out about yourself?
I figured out that I am actually pretty tough. I didn't think I was going to be, but you learn that you can do what you think you couldn't at the beginning. If you just keep pushing, then even if it hurts, you can just keep going, even if your lungs are burning, because each week you get better. And so I really learned that I was a tough cookie and I could do it, and I could pretty much handle any exercise routine that was thrown at me. I might have to do some of the modified moves at first. Mm-hmm. And I learned also that that was okay. You know, it wasn't a judgment about me or my ability to do the modified moves. It's just to make it easier at the beginning until you're able to do the full moves, which is pretty awesome. So I also learned that I'm really competitive. And not just against my husband, because we were doing P90X at the same time, but also against myself. You know, I would want to beat last week's numbers. You know, so that's what would push me forward even more than competing with him, was competing against myself.
That is awesome to hear. It sounds like you have a great partner in David, and a fantastic perspective and competitive spirit with yourself. And that's really awesome. I think it's so important to be motivated intrinsically, regardless of how much support you're getting on the outside and from the people around you. If you feel that fire within you, nothing can stop you. And it sounds like you had that.
I definitely did. It helped me get through the first couple months, which I think is the hardest part, is just getting through those first couple of months. Yeah. Getting the habit in.
Yeah. And I heard you say something that I want to step back to really quickly. And that was that you didn't think when this started that you were going to be tough. So, you know, if you take us back to your mindset when this all started, did you think when you set out to do this, you know, as hard as it was to take those first steps and as difficult as it was to exercise maybe the first time, would you have thought back then that you could be where you are now, 104 pounds lighter than you were then?
No, never. I mean, my original goal was just to get below 180, to get marginally healthy. And, you know, now my goal is to be around 140, 145. That's where I'd like to end up. And so, you know, that's the weight goal. But even the exercise goal, you know, I never ran at all. I would make jokes about how I couldn't run, I couldn't jump. You know, I would swear at the TV when I was doing plyometric. You know, you know, so I never thought that I would turn to my husband and say, you know what, I'm going to come to the gym with you at 5 a.m. tomorrow, and I'm going to go hop on the treadmill, and I want to do 6 miles in an hour. And, you know, at this point, I'm at 5.8 miles in an hour.
That is awesome.
Thank you. I'm adding about 0.2 miles to my hour every time I hop on the treadmill. So, you know, I've proven to myself that I can do it and I can make improvements, and I know that about myself now, but before it was just sheer stubbornness getting me through.
Yeah, it's interesting how your motivation and your methods change along the way as you figure out more about, you know, how your body works and how your own impulses work. It's really interesting. And it sounds to me like you kept very close tabs on your progress, and you had ways of measuring not just like how far you were able to run within a given amount of time, but at certain points, like you knew how much weight you were dropping from week to week and month to month. What were some of the ways that you kept track of that? What were some of the indicators that you kept close tabs on to know that you were moving in the right direction?
Well, in P90X, they have you keep track of how much you can do with the moves and everything, especially resistance, especially weight-based. Okay. So you can see, oh, wow, I did tricep extensions with, 15 pounds last week. Now I can do them with 20, and I do weigh myself every day, and I keep track of that. And there's actually a feature on Calorie Count that will show you a chart of your weight loss from start to finish. And that has been very helpful. And that is, in fact, a great motivator for me because I can physically see my progress. Even on the days when I want to throw the scale out the window, I know it's happened. So, and I also keep track of my calories, and my clothes keep shrinking. So those are the various ways that I keep track.
Yeah. The way your clothes fit is one of the best ways. It's one of the most motivating ways, in my opinion. That's an awesome feeling when something that was way too tight in the wrong places before starts to fit the way that it should.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And I like that you mentioned being able to see, in graph form, for those folks that are visually oriented like I am, and it sounds like you are as well, that you can see kind of your number dropping and see that line coming down as you're monitoring your weight. A really powerful thing that comes out of that method, at least for me personally, is that when I see blips going in the opposite direction, I can almost always track them back to, there was a holiday that weekend and I got a little reckless at the barbecue grill, or I was traveling and I wasn't eating right, or something was going on, where this blip was where I wasn't being very diligent about my either diet or sticking to my exercise regimen. So it's a way to keep yourself honest too, and being able to see the impact of the setbacks you've had.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can look back and say, oh yeah, that was my birthday. That was when I went out to the Chinese buffet, for my birthday. So it's a way to keep yourself accountable, and it's also a way to validate yourself.
Yeah. It's really important to note too that each of those instances was not the end of the world, right? If you saw a blip in the opposite direction because it was your birthday or because you indulged here or there, was not a reason to throw your hands in the air up and go, this isn't working, I'm giving up, I'm quitting. You keep at it, and it sounds like you did. No matter how many blips were on that line, you kept moving them overall in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely. They say take it day by day, but really you need to take it week by week, month by month. Some people, it's year by year, and that's okay. That's what you need to do, because if you take it day by day, you're going to make yourself nuts. Mm-hmm. If you're focusing on, oh my gosh, I've been at the same weight, and I've been guilty of this, that if you're focusing on, I've been at the same weight for 5 days now. I haven't dropped any weight. I've been working really hard. I've been, doing my workout programs and running on the treadmill. That's a great way to make yourself nuts.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing it's going to achieve. So you have to say to yourself, hey, last week I lost weight. Week before that I lost weight. I'm probably going to lose weight this week.
That's awesome. Some great advice in there, and some fantastic advice on the mindset and keeping positive. Very cool, Maggie. So I want to dive in next into what the specifics are of your current diet and exercise routine and how you're continuing to maintain your results. So can you walk us through what a typical day looks like for you in terms of, how many meals you eat throughout the day, what a typical breakfast, lunch look like, and what kind of physical activity you engage in?
Yeah, definitely. As far as exercise right now, I am on round 3 of Les Mills Combat, which is a home workout DVD set that is basically goes through martial arts moves and kickboxing and fun things like that, which really meshes with me because it is very cathartic to, punch the air and kick the air and learn all these really awesome moves and be able to do jump kicks. Which is something I never, ever in a million years thought I would do. So I do Les Mills Combat 5 days a week, and their programs last anywhere from half an hour to an hour. I usually will go to the gym about twice a week and run on the treadmill, and I'll stay on there for an hour, and I will just go as far as I can that day. And, I always aim for higher than I did last time. But I never, will say to myself, I didn't do well if I can't hit my goal, because any improvement is improvement. It's great. And I will usually do weights for about an hour once a week. And I would really like to start incorporating more weights into my workout once I hit my goal, and just kind of keep continuing to build up muscle mass and tone a little bit. So
right on.
Thank you. That's my exercise routine on a week to week. As far as diet, I tend to eat about 1,400 calories a day, but it varies greatly. It varies on whether it was a rest day or whether I really hit it at the gym. I'll eat more because you need to, feed your muscles. You need to feed your body.
Yep.
You need to, give your body the nutrition it needs to replace and build muscle and stuff like that. So it's not a hard and fast rule. And again, I don't get mad at myself if I go over. I try to stick to pretty good macros. Macros are, fats, proteins, carbs. basically the macronutrients you need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to do about 30% protein, 40% carbs, 30% fats. Because fat's in pretty much everything, and I really like nuts.
Yeah.
So
They're healthy for you. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great source of healthy fat. Your body can't survive without some fat. Yeah. It needs fat. So it's all about, the proportions and having it be healthier fats for you. And, for the rest of it, I really just try to eat healthy. I eat lots of fruits and vegetables, tons of lean protein like chicken. We just 2 people, we go through 3 roaster chickens a week. And so, for breakfast, I'll do like a yogurt parfait with granola and fruit, or I'll do usually like a baked oatmeal, and I'll also pop some non-fat Greek yogurt on there with some fruit or something like that. For lunch, I'll usually have another piece of fruit and a protein bar. I have a couple of different protein bars that I get that have around 20 grams of protein. And so that really keeps me going throughout the day because I work on my feet.
Yeah.
So, there's a good amount of carbs, good amount of protein. It gives me energy. And then for dinner, I basically will make something chock full of vegetables, chicken, beans, lentils, anything like that. We use a lot of different kinds of rice. And I'm actually gluten-free, so we don't use any white flours or pastas or anything in the house. And basically, our main source of carbohydrates is rice, quinoa, beans, things like that.
Some great choices, yeah. So Maggie, those are some great recommendations. It sounds like you have a very healthy and very diverse menu at home. So it's not like you're eating the same 2 things every day, and it's not anything that you can get really tired of. Like, it sounds like you have a lot of really tasty options that you all can try. Now, I want you to kind of look back at the journey now from where you are, 104 pounds lighter now. Considering everything that you've learned along the way about nutrition and exercise and your body and yourself, if you could go back in time to the beginning of your journey and face the Maggie from back then and tell her something that she needed to know at the very beginning, what would it be?
I would probably tell me from December 2012 that you can have pretty much anything you want to eat in moderation. So you don't have to feel deprived. Mm-hmm. I like to have dessert. I love chocolate. I am a chocoholic. I love it. So, I leave myself some space in my calories and in my macros so that I can have, that little bit of chocolate at the end of the day. So you don't have to feel like you're being cheated of something. And I feel like that has really helped me go long distance and treat this as a lifestyle and not a diet, is just to know that if I really am craving something, I can have it. I just can't have the entire plate of it.
Yeah.
I can't have 12 brownies. I would love to have 12 brownies, but it wouldn't be healthy for me. So I think that's what I would tell past me, because past me was sure that she was never going to eat anything good ever again.
Yeah. That's such an important thing. There are a lot of people out there right now who were relieved to hear that success like yours doesn't come only from deprivation and having to say no to things that you love. It's all about moderation, and you're a perfect example of that. Awesome. So for the person who's out there listening to this right now and is in the exact same place you were, is maybe at 255, maybe heavier, and has never heard anything like this before and wants to do exactly what you did and turn their lifestyle around, what is one tip you would recommend to someone out there listening to start doing today to get started?
If you have made the choice and you want to lose weight or get fit or be healthier, whatever your motivation is, start simple and start small. Just start moving more. Make healthier food choices. Have more vegetables instead of sweets or something like that. Even the small choices can make a big difference in the long run. If you go for a walk a couple of times a week, that's really going to help you to start out. And you just see what success you have with it, and you want to do more. and you start learning about it and you start researching and you start exercising more, eating even better. So those small choices will really get the ball rolling. You don't have to jump into it all at once in order to be successful.
Yeah, some great advice there. It's so important to take those first steps and then gather the momentum. That's you're a perfect example of that. Again, awesome advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Thank you.
So what is your goal now? What are you working on now? It sounded like you said you're within 10 pounds now of your goal weight and kind of where you want to be. So what are you working on? Maintenance. It sounds like that you're loving the combat workout that you're getting, and you've been liking the weights as well. What is your goal at this point?
For fitness, I have a lot of fitness goals. I've really fallen in love with it. So, I would love to be able to run a 10K in under an hour. That's one of my big goals, and I would really love to be able to do that before the end of the year. I would love to be able to bench press 95 pounds by the end of the month. Right now I can do 85.
Right on.
So, I give myself kind of those small goals where it's achievable. It's easy. I can totally get there from where I am. And then, once I've achieved that, I'm like, okay, what's next? So those are my main goals right now. I would really like to, like I said, incorporate more weights into my workout routine because I really do want to tone up and kind of help with getting my body really, really strong. Like I feel like I'm very fit cardio-wise, but there are areas of your body that cardio ignores, and I feel like weights will help with that.
Yeah, very good advice there. And I want to point something out too that I heard you say is that you have deadlines for these goals. Yeah, I heard you say that you want to run a 10K by the end of this year, and that you wanted to be able to do a 95-pound bench press by the end of this month. So even though these are, like you said, specific achievable goals in the short term, you have a deadline for yourself. So you have kind of that milestone ahead, and you're looking at it. So you're putting some accountability on yourself to get there by a certain time. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. But I think the key when you do that is also to not get upset with yourself if you don't meet that deadline exactly. If it's a week past that or something, it's totally okay.
Yeah, very cool. So Maggie, you've given us some fantastic recommendations and advice today, and you shared some really awesome insights into your experience and your journey. Now, you've already touched on, how much fun the Les Mills workout is and P90X and a couple of other things. But what are some other helpful resources you might be able to recommend for our listeners?
I have really enjoyed a couple cookbooks. I love to cook. And if you are gluten-free and want to eat healthier, want to maybe cut some saturated fats and other things out of your diet, the cookbook that I found myself going back to a lot was called The Healthy Gluten-Free Life by Tammy Credicott. And they actually, her family is gluten-free and vegan because of a lot of food allergies. And so she really had to relearn how to cook, just like I did when we went gluten-free and started eating healthier. So that was a really great resource for me. I'm also on Instagram a lot, and there's a lot of really wonderful Instagram accounts dedicated to healthier eating, healthy living, fitness. And, there are some very large ones, which are okay, but there's some smaller ones that are just about nourishing your body and positive reinforcement. There's one especially that I love, and her Instagram account is Honor Curves, and she has just been an amazing influence on me about not only accepting the body that I have right now and loving it, but loving it enough to change it, to make it better, to make it healthier. So, not only is she great with the, the positive affirmation, but she also says, if you love yourself, why not be healthy?
Yeah.
Why not treat yourself nicely? So she's been a total inspiration for me. And I have a friend named Josh who, if I can, mention him.
Absolutely.
An amazing influence on me. He actually started his journey a couple of months before me, and he's been a dancer, but he didn't exercise for several years. And his journey to get his fitness back really was one of the main inspirations for me.
That's awesome. And I can tell you without a doubt that hearing your story today, there are hundreds and thousands of people out there listening who are probably going to have that same moment listening to you. So again, you have shared a fantastic journey and some great insight into what it was like and what it took to get you where you are today, 104 pounds lighter. So,
thank you.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing those resources and big kudos to Josh out there too for inspiring you and affecting your life that way. And you're, I think, paying it forward today to a lot of people who are going to hear this.
I hope so. I definitely hope so. It's weird for me, I think, to be on the opposite end of that, but I really hope I do.
I have no doubt. And with the determination that you've shown already through your journey, I have no doubt that you're going to hit those goals before this month and this year are up for your 10K and that 95-pound milestone. So I know you'll do that. Very awesome to hear. So Maggie, we're coming up on our time. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and your expertise with us here at Tips of the Scale today. You know what my following question is, because I love to ask this of all my guests, and it gives me a peek into your mindset when you're working out and you're getting fired up. So what is the song, artist, or band that lives on your workout playlist that gets you pumped up for your workouts?
My favorite song right now is Flux Pavilion's song, I Can't Stop.
Ah.
And it's on the trailer for Rush, I believe, is the movie. And I heard it and I was like, oh, this needs to go on my iPod right now. And it is the most amazing cardio track. I love it. Overall on my iPod, there's a lot of upbeat kind of dance stuff. There's Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, Katy Perry. There's also some like girl punk bands like Metric, Paramore, Natalia Kills, and a lot of hip hop and R&B. My favorite right now is probably Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. Is one of my favorites. I think he's amazing. So, my iPod is pretty eclectic, but it's all stuff that has a really excellent beat behind it.
Yeah, some great recommendations there. Those are some really great ones. I'm a fan of quite a few of those as well. I'll make sure to post links up to these in the show notes, so you may have exposed a lot of people to something brand new that they can check out with their recommendation.
Awesome.
Very cool. So Maggie, what is one parting piece of advice you'd like to share with our listeners, and then share how they can get in touch with you?
Well, as for advice, I would probably say just start. Just go for it. There's nothing holding you back but you. So, just make those small steps and build on it. But, for right now, those small steps are enough. They're improvement. Yeah. So, that would be my advice for anybody wanting to start today is just do it. Just, at Beachbody for their programs, they say just press play.
Yeah.
Just press play. Just do it. Just get up and start doing something. Because I feel like getting up, that's the hardest part. Once you've started doing it, you're fine. You're good. So just do it.
Right on, Maggie. How can our listeners reach out to you?
Well, I have a blog. It's a food blog. So cooking, baking, and it updates bi-weekly. So it updates on Wednesdays and Sundays. And the address is mutant_medusa.livejournal.com. And you'll see, tons of recipes that are gluten-free. My most recent ones are healthy. I just started it up a couple of months ago, but it does update twice weekly. So
very cool.
Yeah. And I'm also on Instagram with the handle Magalicious and and I post everything from food pics and recipes to workout pics, and you can just get in touch with me there, see how I'm doing. It's nothing formal, but it's a lot of fun.
Right on. I'll make sure I link all that up and that I spell Magalicious Fantasticus perfectly so that we can find you. I don't know that anyone is one character off of that, but I'll make sure that I spell it right so our listeners can check you out. Maggie, it has been a pleasure again. Thank you so much for doing this and for sharing your story. 104 pounds is an amazing achievement. I have no doubt that you're going to hit your further goals. So from everyone here at Tips of the Scale, thank you so much. You have a fantastic rest of your day today, Maggie.
Oh, thank you, Sam. You too.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tips of the Scale. Head on over to tipsofthescale.com for recaps of every show, links to all the helpful resources mentioned, and more. Here's to your weight loss success.